Support for this podcast and the following message come from Whole Foods Market, where this week and every week they're having sales. So keep an eye out for the yellow signs, where you'll find the highest quality food at great prices. Visit WholeFoodsMarket.com to see this week's specials.
Before we begin this week's show, we want to tell you about something else you can listen to instead.
And why not try NPR's Politics podcast?
Every day during the conventions, the NPR Politics team is going to be releasing a new episode. That's fresh content every day. That's 5 times you don't have to listen to this show.
You can find the NPR Politics podcast on the NPR One app or at npr.org/podcasts. The Summer Olympics in Rio are right around the corner. And there are sports that everyone is excited about. Swimming, maybe gymnastics, maybe watching Usain Bolt in his final Olympics. The javelin these days does not get a lot of attention, but we've learned something that may make it a little more interesting for you to watch.
On the line with us now is Gareth Go. He worked at the 2012 Olympics in London. So, Gareth, can you tell us how they get the javelins back to the competitors after they throw them?
Sure. So when you've got events like the javelin, the hammer, and discus, like these objects get thrown a good 70, 80 meters a lot of the time, and transporting them back to the athletes is obviously a bit of a logistical nightmare without some kind of system of doing it. And so I'm not sure when the whole kind of vehicular transport started, but I know for London they had these cute little minis is what they called them, and essentially what would happen is that when these javelins were thrown, the officials would just put them in the little remote-controlled car, and someone would be controlling that car and driving it back to the athletes for them to use again. And
you said it was a mini. Did it look like a Mini Cooper?
Yeah. I think that was the idea of it.
So you throw a javelin or a discus super far, and someone goes out, puts it in a little car, and then someone uses a remote control to steer it back to the person that threw it.
Absolutely.
And you were the man in London who was driving the car.
I was, fortunately enough. Still, can't believe I can say that to this day, but no, it was one of the best experiences I've ever had, personally, yeah.
I think of modern Olympics as being such a controlled, orchestrated thing. Did they give you very specific instructions about where to drive the car and how to do it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they wanted it to be as professional as possible, and I think they had a lot of trust in us, because if we did our job badly, it could really hold up the event and look a bit sloppy from the organizers' point of view.
Yeah.
So it was in all of our best interest to do as good a job as possible. I think probably the biggest difficulty we had was trying to keep a track of which car was yours. So because all the cars looked identical, at any kind of given moment, they'd have maybe 3 or 4 cars out there to make the whole process as efficient as possible. But if you kind of lost track of which car was yours and you were holding forward on your controller and you thought your car wasn't moving, but secretly off onto the side it was veering off almost onto the track, that could be a bit of an issue.
Wow.
So that happened a couple of times for a few of us, but luckily we didn't interrupt any races in that sense, so that was fortunate on our part.
Wait, so it's possible that it would be on the track where they're running, where Usain Bolt is about to run?
Yeah, I mean, generally for the big races, they'd suspend the field events for a while, so that is silent in the track, but definitely during the long distance events where the athletes are running around the track for a pretty long time, there is definitely the opportunity for one of us to roguely drive a car onto the track, and it certainly came close to it a few times, but luckily we managed to avoid it.
So we have the Rio Games coming up soon, another Summer Olympics. Are you ever? Is that a story you would ever pull out on a date to impress somebody? To be
fair, I reckon at this point most people who know me generally know that I've done it. It's not something I tend to keep under wraps anyway. But no, this is as good a year as any to bring it out. I agree with you.
You got to capitalize on it. This is it.
Absolutely. It's only once every 4 years.
Well, Gareth, thanks for telling us your story.
Yeah, no worries, buddy.
Hey, you may know that we, months ago, made a How to Do Everything calendar, which had a number of holidays which were entirely made up.
And if you have that calendar, you know that this Friday is Christmas.
It's like Christmas, but with just Chris, people named Chris.
Hey, Mike and Ian, this is Jason. My coworkers and I have been doing our best to celebrate the holidays on your calendar. But we're having a hard time figuring out how to celebrate Christmas Day on July 22nd. Any help would be appreciated. Thanks, guys.
You know what? That's a great question, Jason. And what we want to do is we want to help you celebrate Christmas by giving you some examples of Chris's you can honor on this day.
The great Chris's of history. Do you know somebody named Chris Trokey? Have you ever heard of Chris Trokey?
Never heard of that person.
Chris Trokey, 30 years ago, was born premature.
Okay.
And a doctor named Michael Shannon saved his life.
Oh, but there's an actor named Michael Shannon, but it's not him.
Don't get caught up in that.
Okay.
So, in 2011, Dr. Shannon was pinned inside a burning vehicle after a car accident.
Uh-huh.
Chris Trokey, the baby who he saved, now grown up, was a paramedic on the scene, saved him. So now Chris has sort of returned the favor, saved his life, and Dr. Shannon is Chris's son's pediatrician now.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's like actually amazing.
Yeah. Good. So what you do is you go out, save someone's life.
Who previously saved your life.
Or 30 years from now will then save your life. Either way works.
This is just an odd note, a side note, but my name is Mike. My brother's name is Chris. My sister's name is Shannon.
I feel like the coincidence I just mentioned where man was saved as a baby and then came back and saved the doctor's life, I feel like that is maybe more significant, but...
I might be biased.
I think another Chris that we could talk about is maybe Chris the sheep from Australia. Have you ever heard of Chris?
No.
Okay, so this is actually worth pausing the podcast for a moment if you want and Google Chris sheep Australia. Okay? Because Chris the sheep, I guess, wandered around and never wanted to be sheared.
Uh-huh.
So they finally got him. He's just covered in wool. It does not look like a normal sheep. They finally sheared him. It took 42 minutes to take off his fleece.
Okay.
And it weighed 90 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah. Chris the sheep. He's the record holder for the most wool on a sheep.
That's extraordinary.
So I think this week on Christmas, put on a wool sweater.
Mm-hmm.
Go outside in the heat. Be very uncomfortable, just as Chris likely was before he was shorn.
Chris the sheep.
Yes.
Probably my favorite Chris, I feel selfish mentioning this, is my brother Chris.
Uh-huh.
We have a tradition in my family during the other Christmas, and that in our family, Christmas won't start until my brother eats a cracker, which is called Chris's Christmas cracker. And there is usually a Ritz cracker, sometimes a Triscuit, that has been gift wrapped, and it is under the tree or on the tree. And we will not start until Chris eats his Christmas cracker.
Okay, so do you have any idea where from the tradition came?
I think he was probably eating a cracker, and we had to wait for him to finish before we could open our presents. It's like the torch lighting at the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
It's something we all look forward to because then we know that the main event is about to start.
How does your brother feel about this?
Well, I think he relishes it. I think it's a moment when all eyes are on him.
And does he eat the cracker with flourish?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah, maybe a little too much.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a nice Christmas tradition that everybody should do this week. Is have a cracker, wrap up a cracker, unwrap it, and then have maybe the sort of guest of honor at your Christmas dinner or lunch eat the cracker.
Yeah. So before everything else begins, maybe start it with a traditional Chris's Christmas cracker.
I think another Chris we should talk about is Chris Niswander. Chris is a programmer. He's online with us now. Chris, can you tell us about your program, Paw Sense?
Yes. What what originally happened was that my sister was using her computer, and her cat got involved and got on the keyboard. And I don't know if you've ever heard of keyboard shortcuts. You know, Control something or Alt something, and then something happens. So my sister's cat managed in the course of a few seconds to delete some things and crash the computer.
Wow.
So this started off as, a funny story. But then I thought, what would be really funny would be to actually put together a piece of software that would monitor the typing style, and then if it detected a more cat-like typing style, then it would block the typing.
Whoa.
So then it would block the typing. It would pop up a window or a screen that says cat-like typing detected. And then it gives you the opportunity either to use your mouse to click on a button on the screen that says, let me use the computer, or if you want, you can type human, the word human.
Wow. That's fantastic.
So you made this software which essentially detects a cat on the keyboard and freezes out the cat if necessary. Have you heard from any users about it actually being effective in that way?
Oh yeah, it actually works pretty well.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for talking to us about this, and Merry Christmas.
Well, thank you. Have a nice Christmas.
So happy Christmas.
So yeah, I think the thing to do is get a cracker, put on a wool sweater, think of all of these Chris's that have given us so much.
So much wool in the case of Chris the sheep.
At the least. Hey, we want to thank our sponsors this week for giving us the money it takes to continue doing this program.
And for whatever reason, we just have one sponsor this week. It's Casper, an online retailer for mattresses.
Casper mattresses are American-made and obsessively engineered for comfort. They use two technologies, latex foam and memory foam.
And that combination gives you just the right amount of sink and bounce. It's a balance between memory foam and latex foam.
They have a risk-free trial. You can try out your Casper mattress for 100 days with free delivery and returns. They say it's outrageous comfort at a polite price, so go to casper.com/everything to check out their options.
And they have a special offer for listeners of this podcast. Use the promo code EVERYTHING to redeem $50 towards a Casper mattress that works for you. Terms and conditions apply. Well, that does it for this week's show. What'd you learn, Ian?
I learned that there is a computer program that will detect a cat is on your keyboard and keep the cat from writing.
I mean, what a handy thing to have. I mean, assuming you have cats. I don't have any cats, but I can see the utility.
From the human perspective, certainly. But I assume if you're a cat novelist and you've been tossing around an idea for years, and it's time, you know what? It's time to stop thinking about it, and it's time to start writing. And you sit down, and then you're frozen out.
That would be so frustrating. Think about all the humans that have writer's block.
Mm-hmm.
And here, it's actually like a physical block, something that's preventing you from writing.
Yeah.
It's just because you're a cat.
It's probably, when you look through the great history of world literature, no cats.
Yeah. Think about that. Think about all the great cat literature that could have been. Think Harry Potter, for example.
The Catcher in the Rye would be one.
Well, Of Mice and Men, I guess that was a successful.
Mm-hmm.
Got through.
Well, I mean, the Russians, Anna Karenina would be one. There's also the Sound and the Purry.
The Color Purple.
There's, again, Hemingway, The Old Man and the Sea, A.T. That would be one.
Northanger Tabby.
Salman Rushdie, The Satanic Purses.
So Salman Rushdie was also the name of the cat?
Yeah.
His cat was also named Salman Rushdie.
Yeah. Hope nobody issues a catwa against that pun.
Yeah, that probably would offend the Mialatola.
How to Do Everything is produced by Nadia Wilson with technical direction from Lorna White.
Our intern this week is Chris Lemansky. Happy Christmas, Chris, and thanks for all your hard work walking to Portugal from Istanbul, Turkey.
So it was an odd request that we had, but it was crucial to the production of this week's show.
Keep walking, Chris.
Our artist in residence is Justin Whitty.
And we also want to congratulate Todd, who is the winner of our Dino Call contest from last week's show.
He was the first one to correctly identify the number of dinosaurs populating last week's show. So Merry Toddmas. Todd, we're sending you a t-shirt.
You can send us your questions. Send them to us at howto@npr.org.
Our website is howtodoeverything.org. I'm Ian.
And I'm Mike. Thanks.
Hey y'all, Sam Sanders here, campaign reporter with NPR News. I am at the airport in Dallas. So, for more than a year, I have been flying all around the country covering the 2016 election. And now, the biggest 2 weeks of it all are here. The Republican and Democratic national conventions in Cleveland and Philadelphia. It's going to be all over the news. But if the news is a lot to keep up with, do not worry, because we got you. Just keep up with the NPR Politics podcast. Our team will be at the conventions doing quick daily episodes first thing every morning, every day of both conventions. You will know what's happening, what it all means, without the cable news hangover. Daily episodes start Tuesday, July 19th. All right, subscribe to the NPR Politics podcast at npr.org/podcast or on the NPR One app. Cool. Thanks. Bye.
To Kill a Mockingbird I think a cat would just enjoy that. To kill, play with a little bit, and then eat a mockingbird would have been the full title.
Support for this podcast and the following message comes from Lean and Hungry Theater. Have you ever wondered what Shakespeare is all about? Scandal, romance, death. There's more than you think. Lean and Hungry's podcast breaks it down piece by piece. Lean and Hungry is on NPR One, iTunes, Stitcher,